Well, we're going to go ahead and rebuild these existing control arms, which means we have to remove the old ball joints. The pivots actually, they don't come out too bad. Just take these big nuts off, and I think I used 32 millimeter socket I had. I didn't have a US spec one that was exactly right, but that worked fine. So now we're drilling out, well, not drilling, we're grinding out these rivets. So just use the wheel of death, go back and forth across these and just grind them down. And then I use my impact to break them loose. Eventually you'll get them that they'll start to show that they're cracking through. And then just pulverize them, and eventually it just falls out. It's a messy job, and you got to be careful not to grind into the control arm too much, because you don't want to thin that out. But it is doable to reuse these, and that's what I'm going to do. Decided that I'm just going to use these existing ones and solve that problem. Well, another brilliant idea shot to crap. So I took these all apart and removed the ball joints from the control arm and even painted this one. And when I was test fitting some things, I discovered that these threads are boogered on both control arms. I mean, you can tell there's really not much of a thread area on these for these caps to go into, and even the caps here. I mean, I cleaned these up, but look at the threads on this one. So, even if I bought new pivot kits, they would come with new shafts and end caps and so forth, they still would not thread into these. This actually, they spin inside here. I mean, they don't even get tight. So, these are junk. So, into the scrap pile with that. And we're still going to have to buy new control arms. So, control arm attempt number 3. I guess we're going to order them from Autocrafters or Melvin's. Hopefully we get ones that actually fit and can finally put this together. Fun times. Well, this was fun. Here's a brief intermission in some of our work. In the process of cutting open my rust hole down there, I noticed that one of the holes in the frame rail was kind of clogged with crud. So I started poking away at it, and then I used the air gun on it to clean it out. And this is what I wound up with. This is a pile of seed casings, seed shells, from some field mouse's stash that was up inside the frame rail in this hole right here. So then I started blowing it out from everywhere, and I just got seeds all over the place. Blow out both sides of the front frame rails, and they were just everywhere. So keep this in mind if you ever get yourself a barn fresh car, or one that's been sitting out in the field for a while, that you're going to want to blow this stuff out. Yeah, even just cleaning out the road debris and dirt. This thing's got a lot of sand in it because it was on the southern Maryland shore. And then we cut all this rust out and have to make a piece to go in there. But got rid of all that. That was a pretty big area. It was pretty bad. So that's where we are with that. More fun to come with making a patch for that. I think I have the upper control arm problem hopefully solved. Thanks to Autocrafters. We're going to order some from them and see what we get. And maybe, just maybe, we'll have it back on the ground shortly. Well, that's a lie. As you can see there on the label, these are made in Taiwan. And I believe they are the exact same part as the Dorman, which was also made in Taiwan. The only difference I could find is the inked numbers are different. But other than that, I think they're the exact same part. I mean, they really look physically the same. And I'm going to make another video about this, just about these control arms for the rest of the world. But as you can see, they're made the wrong way. Still have too much extra material on there. Too broad compared to these. And when installed and bolted in, they impact the inside of the shock tower and they don't pivot. So, $40 a piece more for Moog over Dorman. I think you're getting the exact same part in a different box. And probably these are going back too. And where do we go from here? Well, we might just have to go tubular. Very expensive. Probably overkill for this car, but if that's what is going to work, then that's probably what we're going to do. I finally did this job, which was to change a filter on the C4. And I could tell by looking at the underside of this car that this thing has not been touched in an eternity. It was just thick with all kinds of sludge and grime on the outside. And the inside was predictable. This is the filter, and it's interesting to compare it to the new one because you can see that there's actually a chunk of the filter material missing. It's lovely. Definitely time for one. And the pan, I mean, there's a lot of grit in here. I'm not sure that didn't come from maybe taking the pan off, some of that, but you can tell that there's definitely some gritty material there. But there's not a lot of sludge. There's some, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I think this thing will be okay. Obviously, we're going to have to rebuild this thing before we put it behind a V8 or replace it with another one, whichever. But I'm just going to replace the filter and replenish the fluid and see what we wind up with. I mean, you know, was it shifting okay before? I don't have any idea. We never drove the car. Didn't run well enough. So we're going to clean that up, and actually the inside of the transmission looks pretty clean. I got to say that the aluminum is just shiny in there, so that gives me hope. But we'll try it and see. You know, a couple of quarts of fluid and a filter are very inexpensive. In fact, this filter from Rock Auto was, I think it's under $5, so perfectly fine to do that. But kind of what we expected to find, but I don't know. I don't know where all that solid material is coming from. I mean, is that clutch material? I always thought it would have been more sludgy. At any rate, it goes hand in hand with the rest of this car that it's never been maintained properly. And figuring we'll have to rebuild a transmission at some point. So there's that. We'll get the filter installed and put clean fluid in it and see what it does. Well, here's a little addition to that last segment on the transmission. This is looking inside the filter, and with a flashlight you can see all the silver particles in there that are metal stuck to that. So we're going to assume the worst with this transmission. I mean, it may work, but I'm sure it's not in the best of shape. But that's all metallic particles that you see there. So yeah, you know, kind of what you expect with something that never got maintained and never got worked on unless it broke. Alright, in the description for this video, there's going to be a link to my in-depth video on these control arms, which I did not tag as part of this restoration Resto Mod series. And I talk a little bit more about why these don't work very well and what you got to do to make them work. And basically, you got to mangle them. You got to smash this end down to get some clearance. So I won't go into any more real detail, just let you go to that link and watch that. And just be aware that these things are not a bolt-in. That's very discouraging, unfortunately, but that's what you got to do. You got to take the hammer to your brand new parts and massage them to fit. So let's get them in and get on with the rest of this. Alright, here's one side complete at last. That took forever. All because of these parts issues I was having, but there you have it. I still have to put the upper controller and bumper plate in, but I'm going to do that after I adjust these for height, because we don't know what the height's going to be yet. So, new tie rods, all new control arms, and the Viking coilovers are now installed. One side down, one more to go. Alright, Falconers, here's where we are. 2 days before departure for the Falcon Nationals in Kingsport, Tennessee. I'm going to be uploading this later. But almost made it, but didn't. And that's okay. I'm going to probably do a video about this comment, but I have to remind myself sometimes that this is a hobby and it's supposed to be fun. And if I'm not having fun, I probably shouldn't be working on the car. So I did take a few days break from this thing. The frustration with these control arms was just getting to me. And as you saw, I did get them to work, I hope. We'll find out once we drive it if they make contact at all and rub. But I think they'll be all right. So I got one side together, which you can see here, and the other side I'm still working and getting the control arm to fit right, and just kind of lost interest on it the other day and didn't get back to it. So we're still here sitting on jack stands, which is kind of a disappointment, but we are very close to being back down on the ground. So by the time I come back from the Nationals and spend another couple days on this car, it ought to be running and driving again. But that leads us to the problem of, the other thing is why I didn't push myself to get this done is because nobody locally could get this thing into a line for at least 2 weeks. So I wasn't going to get it roadworthy, and I didn't want to just take it off the trailer and just park it the whole weekend. So, there'll be more Nationals. I wasn't really going there to win a trophy or anything. That kind of thing doesn't really interest me. So, here we are. So I just wanted to go over a couple things here before the end of this, before I depart. And just looking at my list here, I got pretty much everything crossed off. So what remains is I still need to finish the rust patch on the passenger side and then do the seam sealing. Almost done with the suspension on the driver's side and the front. At that point, we'll be able to bleed the brakes and make those work again. Then we'll be able to get the car back on the ground and get it outside and turn it around or move it over so I can finally do this door spring and attach the weather stripping to the door. I have to adjust the ride height because of the coilovers. Check tire pressures, of course, alignment, and then the crank pulley. I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but I was spinning the engine over something. I don't even remember what I was up to. I think it was when I was checking the timing for the distributor, I found out the crank pulley, the bolt for that was just barely snug. I went to turn it and it started to unthread. And that's supposed to be 95 foot-pounds, as you note there. So I put a note on there to take care of that. I tightened it, but I couldn't get it tight enough with everything together. It's kind of a two-person job. I got to lock the flex plate somehow. Keep it from spinning because I can't get the pulleys to stop turning in the front to get enough of torque on that. But it's looking pretty good now finally. So we got our coilovers installed, sexy things that they are, and still the drum brakes. Yeehaw! I ran out of bearing grease, so I got to go to the auto parts store and get some more bearing grease to redo these wheel bearings. Still have to complete this patch here. I did the rust treatment inside, as you can tell. Painted it all up. And now I got to fabricate the patch. I just made a template for that. And then I found out that I have like an inch shy of just enough metal to cut that patch. So I had to go buy another sheet of 16 gauge metal at Tractor Supply for 27 bucks or something. Jeez, you know, it's expensive, but it's the only place around here I found to get it. Home Depot, you know, doesn't even really carry it, and when they do, it's not any cheaper. So that is where we currently are with the '66 Falcon.